Hi, this is Daniel Knutson. I'm the Community Relations Officer for the local field office here in Charlotte with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service. And today I want to go through a brief presentation on how to obtain U.S. citizenship through the naturalization process. Naturalization is a process by which U.S. citizens U.S. citizenship, is granted to our foreign citizens or nationals, provided they fulfill certain requirements that are established by Congress. They are outlined in our Immigration and Nationality Act, and it's actually identified in our Constitution under the Naturalization Clause, which is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. And our Supreme Court has even identified naturalization as the act of adopting a foreigner and clothing him with the privileges of a native citizen. So it's a pretty substantial achievement for folks to become naturalized U.S. citizens because it has so many additional benefits to those that are just lawful permanent residents here in the United States. When you look at where we have come over the last few years as far as the number of folks that have achieved that goal, as you can see in fiscal year 2019, we naturalized over 900,000 individuals. That's almost a 30% increase over our norm. Our largest that we've kept track of was back in 2008, where we had just over 1 million folks that became citizens. Now, obviously, with the COVID-19, that has had a dramatic effect on the number of filings that we've had this year. So we anticipate those numbers are going to be a little bit lower this year, probably below the 680,000 that are naturalized on an average basis. If you look at our top 5 countries of Mexico, India, the Philippines, the People's Republic of China, and the Dominican Republic, these all are pretty much the same every year. They may change positions every now and then, but for the most part, those are the top 5 countries of folks that are coming here that are being naturalized. And if you look at our eligible candidates, we've got almost 9 million lawful permanent residents living in the United States. These are folks that have achieved that lawful permanent resident status. And if you look at the states, California and New York by far lead the way as far as those that are eligible. And if you look at the country of origin, the country of birth of folks, Mexico just outshines them all. Now, we have gone through several discussion panels on trying to figure out why so many people are not applying for citizenship. And the only thing that we can really come up with is the fact that they're not comfortable with the language yet. So many people that I have encountered throughout my tenure, not only as a community relations officer, but as an interviewing officer as well, is folks are just, it's a second language for most people. And, you're running into folks that don't have a formal education. Most of these people that are coming here, hardworking folks, don't really have that strong of an educational background, and it's difficult for them to pick up this second language. So we've got a means for them to get around that, and I'll discuss that later on in the presentation. There's 8 general requirements that a person must fulfill in order to become a naturalized citizen, and I'll talk with them in depth shortly here. The first one is that you must be 18 years old at the date of filing. Certainly below 18, you're a minor, and should your parent naturalize, you could derive citizenship from them, again, based upon certain requirements. But you must be of legal age, 18 as an adult, in order to apply for naturalization on your own. We have what we call a time as a permanent residence requirement. Most of the people that apply have to fulfill a 5-year requirement as a naturalized U.S. citizen, as a lawful permanent resident. These folks obtain their green card, could be through a family member, could be through a business, could be through refugee status or asylum status, but they need to have that green card for a period of 5 years. Now, if an individual is married to a United States citizen, they may qualify after a 3-year period. It's just a little benefit that we have for them. All applicants are eligible to apply up to 3 months early. And the reason we do that is because we realize it is going to take some time for processing in order to get these individuals in for an appointment to be interviewed. So they must fulfill these requirements. We call this a statutory period. Now, the statutory period for the folks I'm talking about that are filing in this case here with January 19th of 2017, we go back 5 years. We look at the time that they've been a resident in that 5 years, and most of the requirements that we are looking at as far as their residency, their travel, their good moral character, that all is going to be stemmed from this 5-year period. Now, certainly there are some instances where we will look beyond that 5 years when it comes to good moral character, but for the most part, we are going to look at that specific 5-year period. We have what we call a 333 requirement for those individuals that are married to United States citizens. At the time of filing, they must have 3 years as a lawful permanent resident, and they must be married to the same U.S. citizen for 3 years. I've had several individuals that have come here, gotten to residency, got divorced, and then remarried again. Unfortunately, they may have been married a total of 3 years between the two individuals, but they have to be married to that same U.S. citizen for 3 years. And likewise, the U.S. citizen spouse must be a citizen for 3 years. Oftentimes, I get questioned about an individual whose spouse naturalized and the lawful permanent resident wishes to file now based upon the fact that their spouse is a current U.S. citizen. Unfortunately, I have to tell them unless that spouse has been a citizen for 3 years, they still have to wait to file because they don't qualify under this requirement. We have certain residential requirements. The first is continuous residence. This is where we want you to establish a home here in the United States. We don't want you to get your green card and travel back to your home country and live there, run a business, have your family. We want to make sure you establish yourself here in the United States. We do allow you to travel outside the United States and be gone for up to a period of 6 months. We don't consider that continuous resident requirement broken should you be gone up to 6 months. Should you happen to have a reason that you have to stay between 6 months and a year, that may affect the continuous residence requirement. In the past, when I was interviewing folks, the number one reason folks were staying out longer than 6 months and less than a year was due to medical reasons. And that could be for themselves because they just don't have insurance here in the United States, or they've got medical care that is cheaper in their home country, or they went back to take care of a loved one, specifically a parent. So we allow them to be gone up to a year, and they must bring that documentation for whatever reason why they were gone over 6 months. Bring it to the interview so you can talk to the officer about it. And unfortunately, for those that are gone for more than a year, we consider the continuous residence requirement broken. And at that point, the individual must wait 4 years and a day from the date that they had returned in order to apply for naturalization, in order to fulfill the continuous residence requirement. Now, the next requirement we have is called physical presence. This is the total number of days that you are physically here in the United States. Now, if you take a look at this chart here for a period of 3 years and 5 years, you need to actually be here for half that time frame. So a year and a half out of the 3 years is 548 days that you must be physically present in the United States. 913 days for everybody else that's not married to a U.S. citizen. You can certainly be gone 2, 3, 4, 5 months at a time, come back for a week, 2 weeks, then be gone again for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. We just need to tell you that when you come in for your interview, you need to make sure that at the time of filing that you are here at least 913 days. In the past, before we had the electronic filing process, individuals would go on these extended trips, and multiple trips. They'd come in for their interview only to be told that they don't meet this requirement and they would lose the money that they used for their filing. With our electronic filing process, we have a calculator there that actually computes all the dates for the applicant, and it prohibits them from filing that application based upon the physical presence requirement should they exceed it. So it'll save them some money there and some time. Now, our third and final residency requirement is due to living in the district where you apply for your naturalization. The requirement is you must live in the district where your field office is located at for a period of 3 months prior to filing. Most oftentimes, we have folks that move within the same geographical area, so that's not an issue. However, if you're living here in the Charlotte area and you happen to get a job offer and you're transferring to the Raleigh-Durham area, and you already meet the other time requirements, such as time as a permanent resident and your continuous presence and all, and physical presence, my recommendation would be to file your application before you leave Charlotte. That way, when you get to Raleigh, your case will be transferred to that field office and they will be able to adjudicate it rather quickly, rather than packing up your bags here, moving to Raleigh, then having to wait another 3 months in order to apply. Good moral character is a very big thing for us. We certainly take a look at how people are obeying the laws and fulfilling their social requirements within our communities. Certainly, anyone who's been convicted of an aggravated felony is permanently barred from U.S. citizenship. We want folks to be completely honest with us about their past. The question on the application reads, have you ever been arrested, cited, or detained by any law enforcement officer? Now, this means ever. That means it could be in your home country. I've had individuals that I've interviewed that were arrested several times in their home country, but did not reveal it to us during the time of the interview. When we found out about it, doing our background checks, and the individual did not tell us the truth, we consider that false testimony. Now, I also tell folks that if you've gotten something as simple as a parking ticket or a speeding ticket while you've been in the United States, that's considered a citation. Go ahead and put it down. I would rather have folks even put this information down, even if it was dismissed, and they took no action on it. Please put it on the application. Because if you hide this information or don't reveal it to the officer, they're going to know, because when you go in and take your biometrics, which is your fingerprint and your photograph, that information is sent through an FBI database throughout the country, through nationwide law enforcement agencies. Once they get a report back, they include it in your file. So we will understand that something may have happened to you, but you did not reveal it to us. It could be embarrassing. Please don't worry about that. We've pretty much heard it all. So please tell us the truth. We don't want it to be hidden, okay? And just to follow up on that, there are certain crimes that are committed during the statutory period. Remember I told you it was that 3-year period or that 5-year period going back from the date of filing that demonstrates the lack of good moral character. You could have multiple minor arrests that could affect this. Driving under the influence, certainly. Failing to pay income taxes or child support. My goodness, I've seen that so many times. This could have a total effect on the fact that you're applying for naturalization. If you read this the second paragraph here, there are states out there that have approved the use and distribution of marijuana and certain products in their states. Mind you, this is still against federal law. So if you derive any income from these things and you're involved in this industry, be prepared to understand that this is considered a good moral character issue for us when it comes to filing for your naturalization. Now, the personal interview, it's basically going to be the same no matter where you go in the country. The times have changed a little bit with COVID, and I'll explain that just briefly, but the officer will begin by placing you under oath. They'll review the N-400 to determine your eligibility. What folks don't understand and they fail to recognize is that the N-400 is about 90% of the actual interview that you're going to have with the officer. Very short portion is going to be the reading and the writing tests, as well as the civics. Honestly, these take less than about 2 to 3 minutes to complete. And the rest of your 35, 40 minutes that you'll be with the officer, they're going to be talking about the N-400 with you. Be prepared, because the officer is required by law to ask every single question on that 21-page application. So it's important that folks understand all those questions, all the have you ever questions. Now, I know there's some terminology in the N-400 that make it rather difficult to understand. I mean, I'm sure even a lot of native-born Americans are going to have issues with some of the questions and understanding them. But you have the right to ask the officer to repeat or rephrase the questions. We will be happy to do that because we understand, again, this is a second language for folks. This is very important that you understand that you have rights when you come in. You have the right to ask questions. So we want you to be prepared. We will then give you the reading and the writing test, as well as the civics test. And should additional information be needed, such as, maybe a marriage certificate or a divorce decree or, a death certificate, unfortunately, we would just ask that these things be sent in. We'll give you a documentation called a request for evidence to be mailed in to the officer with those documents. Now, this is just a sample picture of what it looks like in an office today. We have these plastic plexiglass barriers up right now to protect the applicant and the officer social distancing wise. They're also testing right now, and I believe it's going to go nationwide for sure relatively soon, that they're going to do video teleconference type of interviews, where the officer will be in one office and the applicants will be in another, and they will be interviewed off of an iPad or some other device. The English test is something everyone must take. They're going to be evaluated on their reading, writing, and speaking ability, unless it can be waived, and it can be based upon certain requirements. Now, if an applicant is 50 years old and they've been a resident for 20 years, that doesn't mean you've been here in the United States for 20 years. You must have your green card for at least 20 years. We will waive the English requirement, all three of them, the reading, writing, and the speaking. And that goes the same for someone who is 55 years old and has been a resident for 15 years, or 65 years old and 20 years as a resident. These are very significant because we do have folks that don't get here sometimes until they're, in their mid-40s, 50s, or 60s. I have had folks that have come in that have, again, no formal education, and then they would have to wait until they reach this requirement. Now, you see the little asterisk by the 65 years old. That just means I want to identify that group of folks are going to take a simplified civics test, and I'll cover that just in a moment. As far as the reading of the English goes, the officer is going to present 3 different sentences for the applicant to read. They've got to read these sentences out loud. And most people fear that, they're going to be failed because of their accent, that they're not comfortable with this. But I'll tell you what, you won't be failed because of your accent. It's much easier to pass this than it is to fail it. And again, the only time that I've had individuals that did not pass this section had to do with the fact that they had no formal education. They never went through any ESL programs. And, I try to help them the best that I can to get through this, but the bottom line is they have to be able to read the context words and read the whole thing in it without pausing, okay? Now, I want to point out that should an individual not pass any of the requirements, such as the reading, the writing, speaking, or the civics, they will get a second opportunity to come in and test with a different officer, usually in 60 to 90 days. Whatever section that they did not pass, they will only be tested on that particular portion when they come in. So if they fail the reading test, but they pass everything else, when they come in again, the next officer will place them under oath and give them a different reading test. Typically, the second interviews last only a few minutes, just because this is the only requirement that they have to fulfill. So as far as the reading and the writing test, they are going to be given on an iPad. This has started up a little over a year ago. And as a sample of the reading test, this is what it's going to look like. And the officer will show this to the individual on the screen, and once they get that correct, the officer will then go to the writing test. Here, the same thing applies. The officer will provide 3 separate sentences to the applicant in which they must write out one of the 3 correctly. We're not going to ding anybody for capitalization or spelling or punctuation. We want to make sure that what you're writing down is something that we can interpret when we read that sentence to make sure it's correct. This is a sample of what it looks like on the screen for your writing. An individual will use a stylus, which is a pen type of an instrument, or their finger to write out their sentence. The applicant has the option to send this to the officer or to erase it and start again if they're not happy with it. So we give you ample opportunities for this. And I encourage folks that before they begin the writing test, ask the officer to repeat the question at least twice. Ask them to write, to read you that sentence so you get a formulation in your mind what those words are, in what order, and how to pronounce them, and write that on the paper. When it comes to the speaking, again, we're going to decide, based upon your answers and how you answer the questions on the N400 application form. As I mentioned, the officer is going to repeat and rephrase those questions until they're satisfied that you either understand or do not understand the English language. The officers are there to assist. They're wanting folks to pass this. It's not going to be something that is given away, but they want to make sure and encourage you to do your best. Okay, we want to make sure you have a general meaningful understanding of the English language and these questions that we're asking. This shows the applicants are tested generally at a high beginner level of ESL, but we have had folks that have had just minor ESL training that have gone through this. Our CIVICS test is based upon 100 questions that were developed by educators in the past. The two study guides noted on the left identify what the questions are. The larger one in red gives you a little bit of background in each one of the questions, whereas the pocket guide, the little blue one, that will give you just the questions and the answers. You will need to answer 6 out of 10 questions. I've had people ask me, hey, listen, I got to know 100 questions, but you're only going to ask me 10? Yeah, unfortunately, that's all we have. We don't have time to do more. We want to make sure that you know a majority of the questions that are being asked. Okay? Now, the questions are selected randomly by the computer, so the officer doesn't have any access to change those at all. However, if you have to come in again, you will get a different set of questions. I mentioned earlier that our seniors that are 65 and older, again, that are taking the test, they get a simplified questions. Those are typically the 20 easiest questions that we have. They won't have to know the 100, they can do it all 20, and 20 is all. We have free resources available on our website in several different languages. If you go to uscis.gov/citizenship, I would caution you because there is a website out there called uscis.com. They actually, in turn, charge individuals for this information. Everything we have is free on our website. We will send you information. You can contact me directly, and I'll send you study guides or flashcards. Excuse me. Just to give you an idea of some of the background and the areas that you're going to be tested on: Colonist, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights. You're going to need to have to know some of it of our geography. What ocean is on the east coast of the United States, and 1 or 2 of the longest rivers in the United States. So it's very important that you get a well-rounded knowledge of this information. And I will share with you, and I have shared it thousands of times, individuals who obtain U.S. citizenship through naturalization will understand and know more about U.S. civics and history than probably 95% of the people walking the streets that were born here. It is just, it's phenomenal, and they take such pride in it as well. And I'm happy to pass on that fact to everybody. I have tested individuals, U.S. citizens, on these questions, and they can't answer them. So I'm just happy as anything when I get to see our folks that have got their naturalization. The final requirement is taking the oath of allegiance. They will show allegiance and support to the Constitution by taking that oath of allegiance during the ceremony. This is a sample of a previous ceremony we held in years. They were all groups. However, nowadays, this is what it's going to look like. Due to social distancing, due to COVID, we are not allowed to have group oath ceremonies any longer. You will actually be given pretty much a same-day ceremony. What that means is you come in the morning for your interview, and usually within an hour to 2 hours after your application has been approved and documents have been verified and the certificate has been made up, you will actually be sworn in as a naturalized U.S. citizen by taking the oath of allegiance from one of our senior officers. It's kind of discouraging because, this is a big celebration time, and we'd like to have our family and friends there, but, folks, we live in a new environment now, a new world. And until this COVID gets under wraps and we can start getting closer socially, this is going to be the new norm for the time being. So just be prepared. I just want to let everybody know that, you know, it is a fact that folks are going to be naturalized. It's just not going to be in the same type of a venue that they had before. Now, we do have folks that, due to some reason, in their cognitive ability, they are just not capable of understanding how to read, write, or even study the civics. This could be due to something such as having Alzheimer's, dementia, a traumatic brain injury, a birth defect. It could be anything. We have a means for a medical doctor or a clinical psychologist that is licensed in the United States and our territories to fill out what we call an N648. It's a medical certification for disability exceptions. What this does is it waives the requirements for anyone to take the reading, the writing, the civics tests and the speaking tests. We will actually allow an interpreter in there. Typically what happens is these folks usually have a family member that is a guardian for them. They will be able to come in and they will help answer the questions to make sure that they meet all the additional requirements from the N400. Now, the application itself is the N400. It can be found on our website for free, as I mentioned. The current version is on there, including the correct fee. You also may request a fee waiver or a partial fee waiver based upon your income and any benefits that household benefits you might be getting. We're going to mail you a receipt, send you an appointment notice to get your biometrics taken, typically within 30 to 60 days after filing. And follow that up, but 60 to 90 days, you'll get an interview notice to come in for your actual interview. Now, I've got to share with you that starting the first week of October, USCIS is implementing a new fee rule, which means the fees for most of our forms are increasing. Notwithstanding, the N400 is going to go up as well. Also, we have to share with you that the fee waiver requirements are going to be highly restricted. No longer are they going to be as lenient as they have been. So my encouragement to folks is, if you're looking at filing and you need that fee waiver, please try and get that application in before October. One area that we are highly encouraging folks to do is to file their N400 electronically. This is just a snapshot of what's on our website, where you can go in and create an account for yourself based upon your email. You'll have to provide a password. With this, you'll be able to access that form or any of the forms that we have online, complete that out, and then electronically pay for it and send it in to USCIS. You'll get an instantaneous receipt back, and you'll get your biometric appointment notice much quicker, as well as your appointment notice to come in for your interview. It's a very easy, very efficient form to fill out. We also have this available for those individuals who are representatives that can fill out, such as our immigration attorneys or DOJ reps that work on behalf of other clients. They also can fill out a form like for them on this website. We have self-help resources available on our USCIS webpage. There you can check your case status. Now, that's regardless whether you file the form electronically or via paper, because you'll just put in your receipt number. The most important thing I want to tell you about here is the change of address. USCIS must be notified if you move. Please don't rely on the Postal Service to do this, because the Postal Service is required to return any mail to USCIS that is undeliverable because you have moved. Okay? We don't want you to file your application for naturalization only to find out that you've moved to another location, and then your application gets rejected and denied because you failed to let us know where you moved to. Now, should you have any questions, we have a 1-800-CENTER call number. That 1-800-375-5283 is a call center number where you can book what we call an InfoPass appointment to come in and speak to one of our immigration officers. We also have this fine feature called Ask Emma. Emma is available in English and Spanish. It's a tool that when you go into our website, if you have a general question or even about specific forms, You can put your information in there and ask the question. Emma will go to our website and pull that information up for you. Our resource center online, uscis.gov/citizenship, has practice tests in multiple languages. I want to say there's at least 12 different languages on there. We've got study materials, we've got vocabulary words. Very important, folks, because you're basically given all the words that are needed to pass the reading and the writing. We just don't provide you with those sentences. You have to formulate what those words might be in a sentence, but understand what those vocabulary words are. We also have 101 YouTube videos. Now, I got to share with you, if you're wanting to sleep at night, pull up a video. They're very boring. But nonetheless, they give you an idea of what the questions and the answers are. And the number one on the 101 is an actual video of an interview going on itself. We have audio learning in English and Spanish, as well as an area where you can find classes. One of the most unique tools that we've come up with, this is about 2 years old now, is an app for your cell phone. The USCIS CIVICS Test Study Tools app is absolutely fabulous. It will pull down and it'll ask you 20 random questions out of the CIVICS Test study guide. They will give them in multiple choice format. When you answer the answer correctly, it'll be highlighted in green. Should it be incorrect, it'll highlight it in red, but it'll also give you the correct answer. I guarantee you go through this at least twice, maybe 3 times, you're going to understand what the answers are to each one of these questions. As much as I love those little blue pocket guides when they came out, not everybody has a chance to look at that pocket guide every day, but typically people carry their cell phone with them all the time. You're sitting in line at the grocery store, or checkout line. You can pull this up and answer some questions. What you need to understand also is that when you come in for your interview, the officer will give you the question and you have to provide the answer. We will not give you a multiple choice. So you need to know that George Washington was the first president of the United States. They're not going to give you a choice to choose from, okay? Now, the last thing I want to touch on is to be aware of predators and scam artists in the community. Our social networks out there, our Twitter, Facebook, you name it, that has been the death of folks in applying for immigration benefits because there's so many people out there making promises. Please don't listen to folks that you see online. Don't listen to the person who is your auto mechanic or does your hair, if they promise you an immigration benefit. Please go to our website to find out if these scams or if these rumors are true, okay? Never leave a money order or check blank. Make a copy of all your records. Please understand that we will send you a receipt for your application should you file it. Please don't trust the guy that's got an office in the back of a barber shop and taking care of your form. We've seen that time and time again. And if you should need legal assistance, well, contact one of our DOJ accredited representatives. They usually work for an approved nonprofit such as Catholic Charities, or any social service or similar organization. There's also licensed immigration attorneys that can assist you, but we also encourage you to check their background and their credentials, okay? If you go to an immigration consultant or a preparer, they cannot give you any legal assistance. They are simply a clerical function. Be prepared, be cautious, okay? We don't want you to be a victim in trying to apply for this most important benefit of filing for your naturalization. Now with that, this is my contact information. I would highly encourage anyone to please contact me if you have any questions. I'm available to answer them. Again, I can't answer legal questions, but I can certainly assist you in any endeavor. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you today, and I hope you found this information useful. Thank you.